Free your breast, free your mind. This is the free your mind, free your breast, free your mind. Hold on. Free your breast, free your mind. Free your breast, free your mind. Free your breast, free your mind. Free your breast, free your mind.
It's a pleasant Saturday on Boston Common, and about a dozen women are winding their way from the Martin Luther King Embrace statue up to the State House. Some of them are fully topless. Some have gotten creative with strategic cutouts or well-placed stickers. Katrina Breeze, a Boston native and artist, came back to her home city to organize the Boston Topless Equality protest through her group, the cheekily named Equalitity, and the Go Topless organization that's been pushing for equal topless rights for almost 2 decades. Wearing an American flag cape and sunglasses, topless except for stickers over the middle of her breasts, Breeze was handing out stickers of nipples that could also be used to cover them. The law in Massachusetts is a little murky about exactly how much of a woman's breast can be exposed in public, but female nipples out on the common, definitely a no-go.
So those are the male ones.
These are actually my nipples.
Not permitted.
I know.
Drawing plenty of onlookers, the small band chants its way up Beacon Hill, with dozens of curious onlookers trailing them. Several groups of teenage boys offered enthusiastic, support.
I love this.
Yeah! And we also remind you that everyone has nipples.
What? I will later.
Take it off.
It wasn't just a walk in the Boston Common that drew the marchers or the crowd. The organizers would like Massachusetts law allowing men to be shirtless in public view, but prevents women from doing the same, unless they're specifically breastfeeding, to change. There are some local exceptions, like an ordinance passed about a year and a half ago allowing toplessness on beaches in Nantucket, but few places have gone the New Jersey or New York route of allowing gender-equal toplessness. The objections come to mind quickly. A sense of public indecency, immodesty, an inherently sexualized female form, that sort of thing. But for organizers, those feelings shouldn't be codified into law.
We are not just here to flap our tits around Boston, as my dad's friend said. We are here to make our legislators 100% aware that we are ready for equality, and the law must reflect that.
I'm Jennifer Smith, and this is the Codcast, CommonWealth Beacon's podcast about policy and civic life here in Massachusetts. The Topless March was led up the hill by Nadine, the president of Go Topless, and South Shore resident Kasyo Perrier, who helped organize the Boston rally. Both are followers of Raelian philosophy, which is a somewhat controversial religion founded in France that, in broad strokes, thinks that aliens created humans. We are not getting into that here. For the record, there was a woman walking alongside the march, which passed by a children's park in the Common, with a sign that referenced Genesis and calling for, quote, protecting the dignity of women and the innocence of children. As far as Raelianism is concerned, the relevant set of beliefs here is focused on disparate treatment of human bodies based on gender. So, caveats aside, I chatted with both of them on Friday as they got ready for the march. Here's my conversation with Nadine and Kasyo. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
So, let's start out with, break it down for me like I've never heard this before. Why are women focusing on being topless in public?
Why? It's very simple. It's to have the same constitutional rights as men to be topless in public.
And how did that actually become the pressing issue? This has been about 2 decades of protests specifically around toplessness in the US, though obviously the history here is very connected to civil rights movements. Bra burning might sound familiar to people in terms of the ways that sort of gender presentation has come forward in these gender equity perspectives. But why toplessness? Why focus on that as the sort of foundational entry point into this specific type of gender equity?
So we are coming in from a very different angle because we are both from the Raelian philosophy. In our philosophy, equal rights, equal gender right is very, very important. And of course, in our society, many people are already taking care of gender equality in terms of, the equal salaries. People are already taking care of that. But in terms of gender equality for topless rights, nobody's taking care of that because of Judeo-Christian, values. It's difficult to tackle that. So here we are because the Ryan philosophy is very open, and so this is why we have decided to tackle this issue.
How did you both get involved in the first place with Go Topless specifically, but also the broader idea of topless equity?
So personally, so it's Maitreya Raya who found this article in a newspaper when Phoenix Philly in New York City, she challenged the law, and she won I think $29,000, because she was right to go topless in public, and that was back in 2007. And so Maitreya Raya said, we really have to start, a movement and do something about it as Raelians. And because I was coming from France and I have seen topless people all around me. My grandmother went topless, I've seen my aunt going topless. It was very, very popular. So I thought, of course, let's do that, and let's liberate the United States. So that's my path.
And for me, living on the ocean and seeing all those men being free, walking and swimming in the ocean, I just want to enjoy the same right as them. So yeah, that's a big motivation too.
So it's sometimes sort of an odd conversation to have in the United States instinctively, even though I believe, if I'm remembering correctly from the map that Go Topless has, there are only 3 states that have full prohibitions on female toplessness in public. But Massachusetts I think it has ambiguous laws, was the way that you were talking about it. So what does that mean? What is not permitted in states like Massachusetts, where it's not a complete and total bar, but it's saying it's sometimes allowed and it's sometimes not allowed?
It's definitely not allowed in Massachusetts, except some, as you know, Nantucket, which they earn the right to be topless on the beach, and a few places in Martha's Vineyard too. Of course, they have a nude beach over there also, except from those areas and maybe some nudist camps. Otherwise, we don't have the right not only to show our nipples, but the whole area around the nipples. So, but that area, we're not sure how big or small it is, but basically that's the breast.
Right, and I'm glad that you brought up Nantucket and some Martha's Vineyard spots too, because this conversation often starts in the context of a beach. I think a lot of people can kind of get their heads around the idea of, okay, well, we're already in swimsuits, we're already, out there. There's maybe a little bit less of a gap, but of course, what the protest this weekend is also about being able to be topless, specifically anywhere that a man could be topless. So break that logic down for me. Is there kind of a sliding scale of where it's made sense for women to be topless, or is the idea just if there's a ban on one gender doing it, that is kind of definitionally inequitable?
Right. So for us, it's wherever the men have the right to go topless. So at the beach, obviously, but of course, also at the swimming pool, public swimming pools should be included. Walking on the side, sometimes, in parks, obviously, it's when it's hot, sometimes you want to take off your shirt. And so if the guys can do it, the women have to be able to do it. That's just as simple as that.
Simply if you want to do some gardening too. Simply if you want to gardening in your yard and you're like, oh, I cannot be topless because it's not legal for me. But you have the man next to you doing his gardening and he can do it topless.
Yes.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that came up as this conversation started happening was that it sort of feels a little bit odd, even if you're thinking about private property rights, that if you're in your front yard, for instance, the comparison that came up is if a guy is mowing his lawn and wants to take his shirt off and it's hot, he can do that on his own front yard. But the idea that if a woman is visible on a public street, even if she is in her own yard, then that too is not allowed. So What has the response been over the years as you kind of try and explain both what the logic is behind allowing women to be topless in kind of public sight and visibility, and then also what kind of pushback? Has the objection changed over time?
So when we try to explain why it's a good thing for women to go topless, people in theory say, oh, yes, it's a good thing. But what happens is we find that women feel uncomfortable. In fact, we go to New York City every year. We're going to be in New York City next week, for our Go Topless Day. And there it's legal, but it's hard for the women to exercise their rights because their Judeo-Christian upbringing stops them. And so this is a big battle for Go Topless to break through the cultural barriers and of course the law barriers, which we are also tackling, and we'll be talking about that in a little while. So this is what we find is in theory everybody is okay, and in practice there's a problem on the side of the women.
Being self-conscious of our bodies. And we would like to encourage women to love each part of their body, not just their hair, their face, but also the boobs, and not comparing, because that's a lot about women comparing each other. And once it's also to bring more peace in this planet too, because once you're able to show yourself, means you have certain confidence in your body, loving yourself, then your level of love increases and your level of violence decrease.
Yeah, obviously, because when you're not comfortable with your body, it's going to bring up a bit of aggressivity. And of course, when she was speaking about, everybody's sort of in a competition, do I have the right body? Do I have, am I sexy enough? And here in terms of topless rights, we're not talking about being sexy or being, beautiful enough. Sometimes the guys say, oh, yes, we just want the beautiful women to go topless. You didn't get it. You didn't get it right. It's just anyone. When my grandmother went topless on a French beach, she wasn't beautiful, but she was free. The thing is to be free and to be equal to the men. Gender equality, super important.
But it's not just about kind of feeling comfortable in your own body. It's also about other people feeling comfortable seeing female bodies out in the world. So what's the intellectual argument for toplessness?
Yes, it's true. So it happens with both genders. We were speaking about the women not feeling comfortable with their bodies. And then at the same time, when something is repressed, then something becomes obsessive. The guys, when they see, a topless woman in New York or, somewhere else in the United States, they go berserk. In France, they don't, because they have a different culture. They have a different frame of mind. So it's a matter of educating the public. You want to educate the women to feel comfortable with their body, and you want to educate the guys to feel comfortable looking at women without, going, over the deep end, like, And it happens also at very young age. You see, when you're a child and you're topless, of course, as a boy, and then the little girl, she's 3 years old, and they're already putting this top on, and they're already programming her. And so it's very important in our society to feel, to educate our young people to feel comfortable with their bodies from the very young age, so that there is not this, fiasco happening when we are, when they're 18, 20, 40 years old. This is really strange. It's a circus that doesn't need to happen. In the 1920s, it was illegal for women to show their legs. It was illegal. And then little by little, they gained this right, But at first, the guys were going berserk over seeing, a knee or, wow, a thigh. That would be, incredible to look at. And today, look at that, Everybody even shows the buttocks, on the beach, and everybody is okay with it, So the breast is the same thing. People can get used to it. It's just a matter of changing the culture, of educating, and little by little, things change. And you would be surprised how fast things can change.
And it's not just changing the culture, it's also Of course, part of why we're talking about it today, it is about changing the actual law underlying that cultural part of it. So walk me through what the journey of topless equality has looked like in American courts.
So Go Topless, started in 2007, and our first court case was in 2014. And so one of our activists went topless on the beach in Chicago, and it was illegal to be topless. So she went through the courts, and, we went up, all the way to the Seventh Circuit Court.
So a majority of the 3-judge panel allowed an equal protection claim under the 14th Amendment to be dismissed. They said that based on, quote, traditional moral norms and public order that it claimed were self-evident, women being topless in public essentially doesn't rise to the level of a constitutional violation. What did the ACLU say?
They said, if traditional notions of morality alone could justify differential treatment based on gender, many discriminatory laws rooted in assumptions about gender roles would have to remain in the books. You see, along the years, we made a lot of headway so that women would be treated the same as men. And by them saying that, we are going backwards. You see, it's really, really important, to tackle this going topless, because we have to be careful that we don't go backwards with that.
So that does speak to a number of the ways that this is kind of objected to, generally speaking, usually under the idea of indecent exposure, that there are rules across, I believe every single state has some version of an indecent exposure rule, but over time, most states have stopped applying that to the concept of toplessness all on its own. So I wonder, could you talk a little bit about how you think about female toplessness as something that's different from this concept of indecent exposure, if it is at all, or if that is part of kind of the broader conversation?
So, yeah, they always dingled, indecent exposure. This is when you were speaking about the ambiguity of the laws across the United States, even the states that have, those that have really equal topless rights. In theory, it's okay, but those that are ambiguous, like Massachusetts, it's like that. Yes, you can, but this is kind of like lewd behavior, therefore indecent exposure. So I think that the Supreme Court has to rule over all that, because otherwise it will always be murky. So us, Go Topless, we have presented our case before the Supreme Court, and they have refused it. Free the Nipple has presented its case before the Supreme Court in 2020. It was refused as well. So I think we have to keep doing that until, the law of the land across the board says, okay, that's enough with this discrimination. It doesn't hold. Women just have the right to be topless, and that's it.
So how have you interpreted the cycles of, I suppose, panic and then sort of quieting down that tends to happen when places like Nantucket pass ordinances allowing toplessness on public beaches, for instance? There's been recent reporting out there for the past year or so saying, yep, it's been a while, nobody's calling the cops, everybody's mostly fine with it. But what does it look like when you start to see these cycles start up? Does it feel repetitive at this point, or are there new objections that arise every time?
No, there are no new objections coming up. They just play on the fear of the people. They push on fear, and then people come down, and then the fear is not even based on anything. It's exactly the same thing as when women were going to, show their legs. They used to say, no, we can't have these women, wear these short skirts. The men they won't be able to control themselves. Of course, they are able to control themselves. Just like they are able to control themselves when they see all these buttocks, on the beach. This summer has been the trend. So they can do that. They can control anything. So we have to stop, putting the fear in the front and, get these laws passed and enjoy our freedom, really.
Yeah, because obviously being topless is not an invitation for men to touch or to
rape us.
Yeah. Every year you also have the nude bicycle ride. And, I've never heard about anybody being aggressed and physically attacked when they're on the bicycles naked. I never think, oh, okay, it's cool.
And so, of course, the guys can say, oh, if you're going topless, you're asking for it. But the thing is, the laws have to protect us. You know, if a guy is going to say this, or if he even going to attempt to aggress us, then he has to be punished for it. You know, we are not the ones that have to repress our freedom in order to accommodate these people. They are the ones that have to accommodate our freedom, you see, with the law. So it's not on us, it's on them. And so I think we need to be really careful with the way, you know, oh, if you have, you know, this way of dressing, you're asking for it. No. I'm not asking for anything. You're just breaking the law.
Because we could say the same about men. Oh, look at them. Look at it. They try to tease us and, you know, and doesn't give us the right to jump on them.
So the last thing that I wanted to hit is that this isn't just something that's coming up in person in kind of physical space. It's also a part of the online discussion and spaces as well. Of course, institutions and places like Instagram have had, and many still do, have restrictions on what you can post of your upper body if you are a man versus a woman. So I guess the last thing to end on is kind of, does this feel like a universe of unanswered or unresolved differential treatment here? Or is the expectation that if enough states individually get on board, then say the social media spaces will follow? Do you have to try and deal with them all at the same time? Or is the hope that there's a domino effect?
Right. And I'm glad you're mentioning this because, of course, in real life, we have laws that we can, you know, try to change through the even the US Supreme Court. But on the social media, how do we do it? Because, you know, each year, Go Topless Facebook or whatever, we have hundreds of thousands of people. And right away, each time, you know, they are saying, oh, we're going to close you down. We're going to, because this is too sexy. This is. And right away, you know, there is always this fear we are. So that's a problem. And what I think is going to happen is once society, you know, from the physical point of view, has certain laws in place, then social media will also have to just follow what's happening in real life.
Back in front of the Golden Dome, Katrina argued that the next move will be for advocates and lawmakers.
So, remind them that this January, right here in the State House, there will be a bill, and it will decriminalize the female human breast. Thank you.
Thanks again to Nadine and Kasyo for joining me on the Codcast. Thank you for listening on this little field trip episode. I'm Jennifer Smith. Our producer is John Gee. Leave a rating and review wherever you're hearing this now if you want to help other folks find us, and email codcast@commonwealthbeacon.org if you ever want to get in touch directly. We'll be back in your ears next week.